Also, I want to thank you'll be seeing scrolling behind me as the sponsors of this conference, and we owe a special debt of gratitude for them because, again, without their support and financial support, we couldn't have all the amenities that you're doing. So let's give a round of applause for our sponsors. So this year's a special year. You'll notice there's a lot more space and a lot more people. When you went to the exhibit area, there's a lot more logos than we've been in the past. So this year, we're in a unique circumstance that we are co-locating our conference with the Air Conditioning Contractors Association of America and the Indoor Air Quality Association. And I would like to introduce our first person to come and welcome us, Paul Stalknecht, who's the CEO of the Air Conditioning Contractors Association. For the past, I don't know, Paul, 2 years almost now? We've been pretty close partners, and it's opened the world. I think is one of the reasons we would combine this, because I think there's a natural marriage in terms of business development networking between raters and Energy Smart auditors and air conditioning and heating and ventilation air conditioning contractors. So with that, I'd like to invite Paul to come up and give a welcome to us.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everyone. This is an annual conference for someone like Steve Baden and myself. We're like a chicken with their head cut off. We're running around doing 1,001 things, and my annual session begins about 10 minutes from now, right next door. So I just want to welcome the Resnet to the here in Orlando, and on behalf of ACCA, and behalf of the Indoor Air Quality Association, we really want to extend you a thank you, excuse me, a heartfelt thank you for joining us. We promise you're going to have a great experience. You're part of something big, and there's some excitement and energies that's produced when you get three organizations together and they commingle and do things together. As Steve said, our partnership between RS and ES and the ACCA is extremely strong, and it's getting stronger. We have solid programs that are built on sound standards, credentialing, and accreditation. We in this building today, well, IAQA, ACCA, and Resnet, we are the leading agents in transforming the whole house, whole building energy efficiency industry. These are initiatives that are grassroots driven, by the industry. And I know Steve has invited me to serve on the board of directors of Resnet, and I look forward to that because it brings our organizations even closer together and the synergies between the two. So in the next 3 days, as you're roaming around the halls of the conference here, I encourage you to open your minds, learn from the workshops, find new business opportunities, make new friends, and again, I think that opportunity is presented to you the next 3 days. When Steve asked me to come and present some comments to you this morning, it was on 3 conditions, because again, I start in about 5 minutes right next door. I had to be on time, and Steve, thank you for doing that. I had to be brief, and I am going to be brief, and I have to be gone. So adios, have a good day, have a good meeting, and we'll see you around. Thank you.
Thank you. And to follow up of what Paul's saying, tonight at the, one of the things that's really going to be unique is all 3 conferences sharing the same exhibit area. So tonight at the reception, take a time, get out of our little boxes and start introducing yourselves to, I think, is your new friends and your new business partners, the indoor air professionals and the ACCA members. And the other thing is that you'll see this quite often, but we want you to join the conversation. Please share your experiences, your thoughts, what your reactions are. And so often go to hashed Resnet13, and this will give you a chance not only to speak out, but you can share experiences from other people at the conference. Now I'd like to ask Mark Jansen, who's the president of the Resnet board, to give the official Resnet welcome.
Okay, those of you who know me know that I'm a man of few words, so I'm going to make this brief. I want to welcome you to the 2013 Resnet Conference, and I want to recognize the folks that put the conference together and worked throughout the year to make Resnet what it is. And I hope she's in the room. I was up at 5 o'clock this morning and walked by the registration desk, and Laura Elam was already there doing her thing. So is Laura in the room? Laura, let's give a big round of applause for Laura. And then Stephanie DZ is behind the scenes and taking the calls. And I think Stephanie is actually feeling sick, so she may not be in the room, but let's give Stephanie a round of applause. There's also Kathy Spigarelli. Kathy, are you here? Kathy's all the way in the back here. Faye Berryman. Faye Berryman's the one that sends out the invoices. So, and then finally, Steve Baden. I think Steve deserves a huge round of applause from all of us. Okay, I would also like to recognize the 2013 Resnet Board. If you're on the board of directors, would you please stand? And remain standing, please. Okay, we have 6 new board members this year. Okay, I would also like the members of the committees to stand. Anybody that's on a committee. Okay, now look around and thank those people that are standing, because they're what makes Resnet what it is. Okay, lastly, I want to recognize a former board member for his hard work, dedication, and perseverance over the last 10 years, working on quality assurance, strategic planning, and our recent bylaw change. Darren Washstock, would you please join me on the podium? I'd like to give Darren the President's Award this year. Okay, that's all I have. I said I'd be short. Enjoy yourselves, have a great conference, and we'll see you next year in Atlanta.
What I'd like to do is to sort of give you an update of Resnet. 2012 was a very exciting year, and then give you a peek into strategically where the Resnet Board of Directors see Resnet heading, and then some of the milestones we're looking for in 2013. Again, join the conversation, hashtag Resnet13. If there's any changes in sessions, this will appear there, room changes and stuff like that. So I'm going to go into the key accomplishments in 2012. And I think one of the key accomplishments that we were achieved is that Congress extended the energy efficient homes federal tax credit. Our voice was clearly heard in Washington. And what I'd like to do is special thanks to Resnet's Washington team, who was tireless working with our strategic allies such as the Leading Bureaus of America, ACCA, knocking on doors, particularly on the House Finance Committee, convincing them why this is important. But I'd also like to recognize 2 special people. One is Jim Peterson from Pulte Group. Jim, are you here? He's not here yet. It just so happens, Jim, it just so happens that through whatever, the chairman of this House Energy Committee is from Michigan, and the House Ways and Means is from Michigan. So it was really important, a major contributor to the Michigan home builders, the Michigan economy representative was able to talk and say why this tax credit was important. Second was a raider, John Jansen from outside of Columbus. He actually happened to have personal connections to the subcommittee chair for taxation, and he was able to go one-on-one. And so that's important because it shows, even though Congress seems so far away and is so intimidating. It's really not. Individuals can make a difference. You may have a kid that's in a softball league with one of the representatives, whatever, but it's important that your voice be heard. The second thing is, I know a lot of you here communicated with your Congress people and I want to thank you for that, because clearly at the last days, the voice was heard. This was one, the 45L, which is called the New Homes Tax Credit, sailed through without any problems. And I think that's a lot because of you, because this is making a difference. The last year we had the tax credit, it was 2011, over 11,000 homes in the United States were documented through a rating that they exceeded the energy code by 50%. Now, one of the problems we have is we work, is that Congress in its infinite wisdom went forward a step and backward a step. They extended the tax credit from January 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2013. That means we got to go through this all over again. And so this year, what we want to do is go to Congress and say, if you really want to transform the housing market, if you really want to go where 50% and over 50% of homes built in the United States are 50% more efficient than code, you need to put a bridge that gets to the other side. So Resnet is going to Washington and advocating a 5-year extension to this tax credit. So we don't, because it really doesn't help the marketplace to go backwards and give post, after the fact credits. So I think this was a big accomplishment, and all you had to do is look that 2012 was an election year, how little got done in Washington. This got done. So all of you, I think we should be very proud of ourselves, and that was a great accomplishment. The other factor is that the home energy rating score, index score, is becoming a mainstream in the housing market. Last year in Phoenix, Arizona, we celebrated the 1 millionth home that was rated and issued a HERS index. I'll talk a little bit later, but that got national coverage. I'm proud to report that in 2012, 128,000 homes were rated and issued a HERS index score. That was 8,000 more homes than in 2011. And what's amazing about this is this 128,000 were done when there was no tax credit or the federal financials. That clearly shows that despite these tough markets, builders see the value of demonstrating through a third party their energy performance of their homes, even in a bad economy. And so what's happening is the HERS index is becoming indeed the MPG for homes. Well, we just can't rest on our laurels and expect this to continue. I mean, I think this is give us to a platform where we can kick it to another notch. And I want to talk a little bit about what's going on to promote the HERS index score. Again, 128,000 homes have been rated. We have over 1 million homes. This is something that's not odd. It's been driven. It's been going on for 10 years. So it's something that you can depend upon. And the other thing is that we have some of the largest builders in the United States, production builders, that represents about 30% of every home built in the United States, that is committed to having every single home rated and then marketing to their home buyers the HERS index. And I think the growing importance and relationship between the home building industry and Resnet is reflected the fact that we have representatives of among the largest home builders, Pulte and KB Homes, on the Resnet Board of Directors, working to try to make this organization stronger. And then we'll be speaking later from another representative from Meritage Homes. So this is what I'm calling, I think we all have dreamt a lot. This is showtime. They're listening. Not only they're listening, they're actively engaging with us. And we can see now how the HERS index is becoming something, it's complete, as I say, the MPG, that consumers can understand. Here's some representative of marketing that's placed across the street from some of the largest home builders. And you can clearly see that there's a unity of theme. And I think what we're hoping to do is create a situation where a home buyer is going to ask what the score is. They'll go to one of these new homes, see what the HERS index score is, then go to maybe an existing home or some other home, and when they start asking the question, what is the HERS index score of your home, then we're going to see a market transformation and actually going to a pressure within existing homes to improve the home's performance all through the marketplace. And then again, in last year, we received quite a bit of coverage, and some of it was the launching of the event in Phoenix, but Fox News, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, AP, CNN, Washington Post, the Arizona Republic, and the Los Angeles Times all carried stories about the HERS index. The other thing is that there's two major columns that you see, syndicated columns that's on housing, the housing scene and the nation's housing, all had full feature stories last year about the HERS index and how it's becoming the MPG of homes. So this is great, but it's all actually getting better. What we're seeing a trend in the past couple of years is coast jurisdictions adopting the HERS index score as a code compliance option. To date, we have over 150 local codes jurisdictions stretching from Idaho to Massachusetts that have adopted a compliance path for by a HERS index score. And what's interesting about this is it defies the red state, blue state definition that so divides this country. You see states, red states such as Idaho, Arkansas, and Kansas doing this. On the same time, you're seeing states you traditionally would think of this, like New York and Massachusetts. So I think this is a big trend. And I think as we approach to the 2015 IECC, there's going to be a lot of discussion on doing this nationally. Because one of the problems we have is that there is no national number. Each municipality develops a different number. If you go to the Resnet website and look at some of these ordinances, you'll notice that the numbers are all over the board. So it would make sense to have a national benchmark from the IECC that everyone can use from the same ground. And there will be a session at this conference talking about the various initiatives, proposals before the IECC. The other thing I think is important is that strategic partnerships were formed with the leading trade associations and product manufacturers. There's two factors of this. One, I'm a political animal and a policy animal, and of course, through Unity's strength, our voice is much clearer heard in Washington if we have partners like that, but also from a business strategic planning. The fact that there is a symbiotic relationship between a rater, a contractor, and a builder. And the more we can generate this network, the more we become a full service solution to homeowners that want to move it. And the other thing is it's boundless business opportunities for you in the crowd, because you're not just working with yourselves, you are not alone. And I urge you to follow what Paul said, is reach out, go to reception tonight, share a beer with someone you don't know, go to a booth that maybe that's not usually part of the Resnet conference, because these relationships is going to serve you well. The other factor is, and which is good, is that due to the oversight by the Resnet board and the staff of Resnet, we've continued on a secure financial foundation. Despite the economic downfall, your organization is sound financial health. And matter of fact, we've garnered some resources that now if these opportunities are faced, we have resources that we can invest in trying to make the next level take place. The other factor is that you, the membership, last year adopted new bylaws for our organization that allowed our organization to be more inclusive, include our strategic allies as formal members of the board of directors and members of Resnet. And I think those new seats, we said there were 6 new seats, including product manufacturers, contractors, home builders, will make an ability for us to shape our programs to be more inclusive and also better meet the needs of our clients. And then I think the other thing which is significant is in October in Charleston, the Resnet Board of Directors adopted a new strategic plan that maps Resnet's path to the future. And I'm going to do some highlights of what the strategic plan looks like. So we set some strategic goals, and this is where we're striving to be by the end of 2018. And that is, by 2018, a majority of new homes sold in the United States will have been issued a HERS index score, and that this indeed becomes the MPG clearly designated in the marketplace. This, to me, in my mind, gives the critical mass where consumer will start asking, what is the home score? The other factor is by 2018, the Resnet standards for performance testing of homes and the HERS index score will be as a compliance option into the International Conservation Code. And we're already taking the first step in terms of the 2015 IECC. Right now, the 2012 IECC requires duct testing and blower door testing, but there's no reference of who can do it or what's the procedures to follow. Well, we're going to fill that void because Resnet is developing an ANSI standard that will define how you do a blower door test, how you do a duct test, and it then will be available to the point of being adopted by the IECC. Once code officials know we have this network and we have an ANSI standard, I think your business as raters will go up because builders will be looking for these testing to verify their code. The other factor is that it may not be Congress, but there's a SAVE Act, and I'm not going to, there's going to be a session in our conference about it, but it's basically a way to rationalize and reform how a mortgage loan is made. Fannie Mae has found the cost of heating and cooling and providing hot water of a home is the highest cost to owning a home outside of the mortgage loan. But this is not reflected at all. The consumer, most of the cases, don't even know how they don't have the MPG sticker in the car. The other factor is that it's not credit. You don't get credit in your mortgage loan affordability if the home doesn't cost as much energy. So there's a concept in Congress that's got bipartisan support that basically takes the traditional home qualification of principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PITI, and subtracts monthly energy savings. And that's awful powerful because what it will do in the mortgage process will rationalize it to the concept that per dollar saving that you have on your energy bill will allow you to put investments into your home that will save energy. So I think that there's going to be exciting information. There's been a study, it's not released yet, but it's going to be released in March, that indicates that homes that are energy rated perform better than standard mortgages. Less defaults, less late payments, and in today's environment in terms of the housing market, that's a powerful message. So we have to either have, through action with the administration or Congress, a rationalization of our mortgage process. So that's our goal, to get that completed by 2017. The other factor is to continue the organization being in the black through 2018. And then the real stretch is we want to see the birth of the home performance teams. The fact that raters, contractors team up together and provide whole solutions to homeowners, improving the energy performance of their homes. And our goal is to have 10 home performance programs adopt or recognize the home performance team as a compliance option. We already have 2 accomplishments. 2 bills in Congress that were introduced last year to provide performance-based credits to homeowners to improve their homes. Recognize the Resnet standards for that. We just got to take it from that high-level policy issue to actual implementation. So based upon these priorities, the Resnet Board of Directors, the strategic goals, developed the priorities for the organization. This is by which I'm going to be measured on how effective we are, and the board's going to be measured themselves how effective they are. So I'm going to go really quickly with it and seeing this is what Resnet's spending its energy this year. Of course, the first one has to be the increased penetration of the Resnet HERS index in the marketplace. The second of which, that's one thing, these alliances and stuff, but the second is to create a consumer awareness campaign and so that more and more homeowners and buyers can see this HERS index and understand the HERS index. And in 2013, Resnet is going to be undertaking an aggressive social media search engine optimization program to get the HERS index to face. And you will see as we go forward changes in our website, more communications. So I'm really excited. We also received, I'm proud to announce, a unique grant from Google where they did a survey of nonprofits' website, and Resnet was selected as the most dynamic. And they are going to give us each month $20,000 of ads free to get the message out. So that's going to expand the service of Resnet. And then we're going to have a session, and this helps you because if you're a member of Resnet, you have a ability to tap that. You have your own website within Resnet. We want you to start piggybacking on our search engine credibility right now is very high. It's 80 on a scale of 100. You know, and so, you know, Google, of course, is 100. So the fact is that we have that platform, and there's going to be a session at our conference on how you, as individual members of Resnet, can use that to increase your search engine optimization and getting consumers contacted with you. The other factor is that working with the building industry, code advocates, the rating industry, and local code jurisdictions to incorporate the HERS index score as an option in building code compliance. And then finally, to work tirelessly for policy and legislation for the financing of improved energy performance of homes. Our job's not done, and I have faith in the fact that we were able to extend the tax credit this year, despite this terrible divide we have in Washington. My work with our Washington team and our allies in Washington convinced me that energy efficiency, building performance is not a red state, blue state divide. I think that some of the most conservative Republicans could understand the concept of performance, where the government doesn't pick the winners, doesn't pick the technologies, but they compete among themselves by trying to improve the overall performance. And then that allows it that the individual builder or the individual consumer makes their own decisions on what they want to do to improve the performance of the home. And I think we got some traction, and I think we're going to have the build upon that. And despite everything else functionally going in Washington, I think I have high hopes that we can deliver on this. So my final presentation thing is to invite you to come to, you all to come down to the Resnet conference in Atlanta, Georgia next year. It's going to be exciting, and we're going to be right smack downtown, so you'll be able to enjoy the unique social, cultural, food opportunities that downtown Atlanta has. So with that, I want to thank you very much. I think we've accomplished some very exciting things. Our board has set pretty much lofty goals for us to accomplish over the next few years, and then we're going to be very busy in 2013. You're at stake in this, though. Our success will help your success will help our success. So I want again to reflect what Mark Jansen sent you last year. Let's all get engaged. Resnet's not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But together, by having this open communication exchange, we learn more. And I think we've got to move our blinders from the way we did things in the past and start understanding these new opportunities and try and position each other to be able to take advantage of that new opportunity. The future is bright. We survived the greatest housing recession since the Depression. We've gotten stronger. Here's an interesting thing I think you don't realize. This recession killed the housing industry almost. We went from, in 2006, over 1 million new homes being built and sold each year to a little bit over 300,000. That same time, the raw numbers of ratings conducted each year has gone up. Our percentages have skyrocketed, but raw numbers, we go up each year. So that, to me, is an indication this is not a false economy. This is not dependent upon one-time government funds. And we survived the recession along with the housing industry. Things are only going to be looking better as the housing industry goes. So thank you very much. It's my pleasure to introduce CR Herro. If you've been to any kind of conference, you know CR, but he leads the energy business innovation programs for Meritage Homes. Meritage Homes is one of those big national home builders, but it's been a leader and advocate for building performance at a national scale and has certified every home they built to Energy Star and included the HERS index since 2009. This is not someone just joining the trend. Along the way, CR has made a bunch of mistakes, and he's agreed to share these mistakes he's learned from. And one thing is, he's never boring.
I drop F-bombs randomly, so it just keeps everybody's attention. So good morning. I will not promise to be brief because it's just not my style, but I will warn you, Steve asked me to talk about customer segmentation, which I think is a really important topic in helping understand how to communicate based on each individual consumer's perspective, how things can be done to make their lives better. And I thought about it as I got off the plane last night coming in, and I deleted on purpose the presentation. And so this presentation I built at 2 a.m. And I built it because I recognize something that's a fundamental flaw in the way we all approach energy efficiency. The thing we do the most wrong, and Sarah does this probably more than anybody, is we're right. And we kind of sit down and recognize we're right and assume the world will be fair and everybody will figure this out at some point. And by the way, it's not happening quick enough. There's not enough change happening in the world today, and so I'm advocating something that I invented at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is, I say we go mind control. I think we need to much more aggressively engage in helping consumers do what's right for themselves, whether they get it or not. And I mean that literally. So I Googled psychological manipulation at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I found this Robert Cialdini. And great, it's simple stuff, right? How do you get people to change their behaviors? How do you influence them? How do you manipulate them to doing the right things, right? Consistency, social proof, reciprocity, authority, liking, scarcity. What tools can we use to help drive change? Because innately, Sam can probably speak to this more than anybody, is innately people like to do the same thing. Whether it's the best thing for them or not, people want to kind of have patterns and be comfortable. And the most expensive thing they ever buy and maintain is a home. And having to think about, I'm not doing enough, or it should be better, or I'm wasting thousands of dollars is really stressful. And so if they can just kind of put their heads down and think, I've done enough, they'll do that. And we really need a call to arms to help people make better decisions, to change the way we do things, because we're right, but it's not enough. And so I'm going to talk to you about psychological manipulation this morning. This is what I want to do with our consumers. I just want to hold them down, crank their eyes open, and help them make some better decisions. So Steve mentioned this social proof, and with all due pride, right, Resnet and Energy Star and DOE have gotten these great acclimates in really reputable media pieces about people can have better, and there's net zero equivalent homes, and this HERS rating helps people make better choices. And the honest answer is we're right, so let's just kind of sit down, and the media will solve the problems, and people will figure it out, and they'll come to us. And actually, I think that's a bit of a fallacy. It helps. It slowly is turning the boat of the average public sentiment. But the key piece that we all need to leverage when we talk about social proof is the people that live it. You know, I look around this room, and I'm really proud. I probably know half of the people sitting in this room. And we are a small subsection of the population that self-selects and understands this and comes to do better, right? Most of the people sitting in this room are good with change. You do not represent the average buyer. But what's interesting is we all interact with people who have retrofit homes, who've bought new homes, who have gotten these great homes that work better, and they're friggin' happy. I get letters all the time that says, I have no idea what you were talking about. I watched your video and you made no sense. But I bought my home and I live in it, and it's quieter and it's cleaner, and I don't hear my neighbor, and my kid feels better who has asthma, and my utility bills are way lower. And I don't know what it all is, but I'm not buying another house that doesn't work like this, right? Whatever this HERS score is, I'm not settling for less. And the thing we need to think about leveraging better is not waiting for the media to change people's minds, is this social proof. These happy people, these testimonials we can get from consumers that would never buy another home that doesn't have these kind of components in it, is a key to helping consumers change who they are, make better decisions, live a better life. It's not that hard to manipulate these people. They know what they want. We just have to give it to them. There was an article written recently that I really love, and it claims I said this, and I might have said it, but I don't remember saying it, which is be greedy, be green. And that always makes a lot of sense to me, right? Realistically, what are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to help people get more, have better. Between good, better, and best, we're trying to give them the tools to choose the best thing in the market today for them and their family. And they've told us what they care about. So if you're trying to help a consumer or to psychologically manipulate them into making good choices, I don't care either way anymore. They've told you what they want. They want to save money. They want to reduce their wasted water. They want to reduce the impact they have on the environment. You know, every year J.D. Powers issues this report, and every year these indices get stronger. People want better. They just sometimes think that they're being sold a sacrifice. And we have to help them understand we're not exchanging something, we're giving them something that works better. We're giving them more comfort, we're giving them better air quality, we're giving them money, which we should get to. Psychological manipulation, rule 2, reciprocity. What does Cuba want from Jerry? Right? Friendship? Tea party? Money. Let's stop screwing around. A HERS 68 home, 2,200 square feet, over a 30-year mortgage. What do you think that savings is? $80,000 to $90,000 of savings in utility bills alone. If a consumer doesn't know that answer, can they make a good decision in the marketplace? Can they differentiate between good, better, and best? Can we just give them money to make good decisions? Can we just manipulate them by giving them thousands of dollars in disposable cash they can spend on when they damn well please? Hell yes, right? We've got great partnerships with our utilities throughout the country that can help them understand the average home works like this, a new home works like this. This home can save you, 66% on your utility bills. And this is coming from the company that's going to send you your utility bills every month. If you want to help people make good decisions, give them the tools to be selfish. Give them the tools to live better. Help them get the money, right? This is something I've seen a tremendous amount of traction with. I think every builder who's building better than homes should make this a requirement in the appraisal process. This is AI 82003. It is a 4-page addendum that identifies everything that's special and above compulsory code built into the home. And if you're building Resnet certified, EPA certified, DOE certified homes, you populate the hell out of this. You've got document after document after document, and just to make people feel nice, I made this a standard. I get $10,000 a home as a line item, green features, in my appraisal processes. So for all of you building better homes that are struggling to get your appraisal process, I strongly encourage you to embrace this new AI form. And then in October of last year, they did the same thing with renewable energy. The Sandia Labs appraisal form, it basically takes all the benefit for the life of a renewable piece of energy and net present values it back and says, we're going to increase your appraisal process by that amount. So if your solar system is warranted to last 25 years and it makes 9,000 kilowatts, it's worth this amount of money in today's cash. And so all of you trying to push for better than homes, you now have the tools to show customers the money and help them get the understanding to make better decisions. So I literally have this as the front slide of my internal sales training, and I use this as a threat because my salespeople have to spend 2 days of me when they're new just hearing me do this to them, holler at them about green. And authority helps a little, hollering them helps a little bit more, but what if we had a governmental agency that's in charge of people's health and saving them from toxins and making sure that nobody's killing their groundwater supply and making their air healthy? What if we had that governmental agency certify a home is better and healthier? That'd be great. What if we could actually do a certification that help people in Central Texas where they can't wash their car and they can only water their plants on Wednesdays and Saturdays? What if we gave them a governmental certification that helped them, that told them the US government, EPA says this is the right thing to do to conserve water? What if that organization certified and stood behind a builder and certifying graders and said this will improve the air quality for your family? Could we manipulate people and help them get healthier homes, more comfortable homes, homes that waste less resources, that use less energy? Can we use authority in a way to help people validate what we're trying to help them do, right? You're trying to help improve their lives. Is it marketing bullshit or is it true? If you've got a certification process, if you've had a third-party inspector that signs off on this, how does that help a consumer make good decisions, right? Psychological manipulation, it's authoritative. This is a key piece to why we do what we do as a builder, is because we need people to understand it's true. They really can have better. And obviously these programs enable people to get better. And you saw a bunch of labels a second ago from Steve about HERS rating, right? This is one of the key enablers to leverage people to understand how they can get their money, right? Adopting HERS scores into our marketing to help people understand what that 59 means, right? This, this is a 4,000 square foot home, or it's 2,200 square feet, a HERS 59 saves $115 a month. Like I said, if we just did this, we haven't really enabled consumers to make a good decision. If we let them understand that that 59 means in the first 5 years you're going to save over $7,000, now they're a little bit more motivated. Now you get another 4 sentences to help them understand. They understand after 10 that's over 15, after 20 it's over 37, and after 30 years, that HERS 59 represents over $65,000 in savings. Now you can psychologically help these people make better decisions. And I say this with all due respect. If your customers or your home builders' customers walk away from their homes that are rated a HERS 59, and the work and the money and the investment for everybody involved in this room to get us there, and they walk away and don't understand that that means $65,000 in benefit, or $65,000 they get to write in checks that they get nothing for, but a less comfortable, less healthy home, we've done a poor job at helping consumers, or manipulating consumers, depending on how you're looking at today, make a good choice. And ultimately, I'm okay with psychological manipulation when it helps. So liking is one of those principles. And some of it is just, a lot of home builders in the room recognize we hire salespeople with good charisma because it's important to trust and like somebody you're about to write a $350,000 check to. But for me, it's more than that, is I think about the person in this picture who makes that decision, right? The guy makes decisions at Best Buy, the little girl makes decisions at the American Girl store, the little boy gets trains. All home buying decisions are made by the girl in the mustard shirt. If you don't know that, we should talk after this because it's a real key piece to understanding home building. And so the first question is how do you help that person who's actually the decision maker make a good decision? And one of the keys is who does she pay money to make good decisions? And I will tell you, one of the things when I look around this room that I'm disappointed in, and I personally am focused on for the next several years, is that person. The key influencers of home buyers, because people buy a home every 7 or 8 years. The key influencers, real estate agents, mortgage underwriters, appraisers, they do this 4 or 5 times a day. And if they don't understand our message, if they haven't been manipulated to understand how this changes the world, lower dependence on foreign oil, lower peak energy demand, which makes utilities much more efficient, and trillions of dollars in increased GDP from reducing the waste of an average building. If they don't understand our message, are they helping consumers make a good informed choice? Now, I'm going to remind you again, I did this at 2 o'clock in the morning, so it was funnier then. Now that I've had some sleep, it's less funny, but I want to point this out as well. The woman who makes the decision, and you think about liking, who makes super great homes that are creative and energy efficient and setting a new standard? That guy does. And who brings that guy coffee? That girl does. Which was really fun to me at 2 o'clock in the morning, but we'll move along. So the last piece of this is scarcity. And the good news is could we use it to manipulate? Could we tell somebody, well, there's only 3 HERS 65 homes left, and then you're going to have this HERS 165 and spend 3 times more in energy bills? Yeah, we could. Is it honest? No, I've got a bunch of builders I compete with that'll build them a 65 home, unfortunately. But I do want this as a test to a year after a consumer has renovated a home, has bought a home, what we're looking for, and then I'll end with the whole point of this. This is my favorite little boy on the internet. I use his slide in everything I can because his face makes me goddamn happy. This is what we want our consumers to look like a year after they did it. They didn't get it all. They weren't sure what all that crazy building science was, but they got the right thing. They got a house and they're not paying energy bills that are absorbent, they're comfortable, they're healthy, they did good. I love that kid. Right? This is what we want. We want to help people. And like I said, I'm getting to the point where it's not this passive, let's sit on our hands and hope that the media brings them to us. Let's get out there and help them make better decisions. We want people happy. We want them satisfied. We want to exceed their expectations, because this side of the column talks to their friends, talks to their family, and helps society start making better decisions, this social influence piece of psychological manipulation. What we often get is this, the skeptical version of, yeah, you're all green, or oh, a house is a house, or a house needs to breathe, you stupid sons of bitches. Anyway, we often get this one, which is, they didn't make a good decision, but that's him writing bills every month. Bad decision, but nonetheless, it made me laugh at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then obviously, when they go to resell their home, and they find out that the society has changed, and their code-built home, that according to the SAVE Act, no longer can comply to better underwriting criteria, can no longer assist them, is no longer a premium in the market today because it doesn't have better insulation, better windows, better appliances, better lighting. It costs twice as much to operate. That's going to be the face after it gets the appraisal and you try to compete in a marketplace with homes that we all in this room know how to build. But the whole point of today's talk was just about this last piece. That is our average consumer today. They don't know. They're spending the most that they've ever spent on anything in their home. And you know, in the 70s, it was about wear hemp and bike to work, and in the 80s, it was about organic, and in the 90s, it was, whales and polar bears, I think. I don't remember exactly the 90s for some reason. But anyway, our consumers are just confused. And whether it's psychological manipulation or whether it's you're going to aggressively help somebody make a good decision, we've got something great. And I started this talk about saying the weakness of most of our strategies is we're right. We make the world a better place. We save people money. We're ROI positive, right? We do these things and we just assume, well, it makes sense. Of course, people will come to it. But that's our consumer. And that's the point I want to make this morning, is there's a lot of information that you all have that make you no longer representative of the average consumer. You understand this. You know it's right. You know it's true. But until you aggressively roll up your sleeves and help people make better decisions and get them through the process of the safest thing I can do is put my head down and keep doing the same thing, until you aggressively help people make their lives better, until you start employing tactics like give them $65,000 they can spend on what they damn well please, until you help them, that's what they are. We want them to be that kid in the bottom right, because I love that kid. But the middle kid is who we've got. We've got people that just don't have the tools to make a good decision. And we know we're right. Now let's help them make good decisions. Let's help them be right as well. Thank you.
The next on the agenda, I'm going to ask David Beam from the Insulate America to present. We had a contest for the best ideas in which we received a whole lot of good proposals and stuff, and so David's going to be announcing the winner. But I want to say a couple things about David and his organization, and Amy first. I had the pleasure of meeting, talking to you guys about 2 years ago. And then last year I was graciously invited to their event in Seacoast, Georgia. Not only did I have one of the best times in my life, but also I saw the energy, the synchronism between their members and what we're trying to do. And David's been a tireless advocator for insulating contractors to get plugged in, to be third-party certified, to work with either BPI or Resnet, and start making those circles there. And I think Insulate America has a wonderful organization. So without any more ado, I'll let you turn it over to David, and you can announce the winners this year.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be with you again this year. I'd like to introduce Amy Goforth, our Vice President of Operations. Amy, please stand so everyone can say hello. It's okay to look back at me now. Insulate America is the largest independent insulation contractor, and at the core of our DNA is sharing ideas. We've learned that within any organization there are many, many great people and great ideas. If you can harness those ideas and implement them, then everyone wins. So when Steve invited us back, we said, why don't we do that within the Resnet membership? Share some ideas, find out what your members did differently, and then share that with each other so you can learn and hopefully differentiate your companies. So we solicited ideas from the membership and received many, many great ideas. Judging that, there were a number of people involved, and it was quite difficult, as you can imagine. But we did have 3 ideas that stood out, and today we invite you to hear their stories, what they did differently, how they did it. That session will take place today at 2 o'clock in Crystal Ballroom E and F, and we would love for you to hear some of these ideas. We have a plaque for the winners right now, and this afternoon we have some checks for them as well. So the winners are Roy Honeken from Home Builders Association of Lexington. Roy.
And you'll be hearing from Roy a little bit later. Roy is one of our new board members.
We also have Chris Cowperwaite with Southern Energy Management. Chris? And last but not least, Jane Kahn, ES Green and Company. Jane? Back. Thank you again. Have a good day.
So be sure to come and find the real stories behind this, because I think they're very fascinating. You'll pick up some ideas on how to help your businesses grow. And one thing I was neglected to say, and I apologize, David is one of our new representatives on the board of directors. So I'd like to now introduce our keynote speaker, and I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Ron Jones. Ron Jones is a national award-winning designer builder, noted industry leader for past quarter century, and a long lifetime champion for sustainability. A life director and former national vice president of the National Association of Home Builders, he is the only person ever to have also served as the national board of U.S. Green Building Council. Anyone knows the world of greens, that's like having a cousin between the Hatfield and McCoys. So you've had some very interesting Thanksgiving dinners, I'm sure. He is co-founder and president of Green Builder Media. The flagship publication we all know is Green Builder Magazine. Was launched in 2006. It became the largest publication by circulation and distribution in the building industry in just 3 years. Ron has delivered presentations at the conferences and events in 49 of the 50 states and on 4 continents. And any of you who've been reading Green Builder Magazine and sees his columns, it's safe to say that his message has been described as the balance of passion and reason, and his personal motto is green with an attitude. So please welcome the Green Builder, Ron Jones.
Good morning, everybody. That's a hard act to follow, CR, I got to tell you, but I want you to know at 2 o'clock this morning, I was sleeping like a baby, as anybody within earshot can attest. Steve inquired as to whether or not I would be interested in sharing some thoughts at this conference, and I said I'd be honored to do that. And I asked, what is it that you would have me talk about? And immediately, usually you get some hemming and hawing, and well, I don't know, whatever you think. No, he said, I'd like to know what you think the future of green building is, what the role of Resnet and HERS is in that future, and then talk a little bit about the Vision House, which is a project that we have here in Florida. I could sum up an answer to the first question in one word: uncertain. And I'll talk a little bit about why. The second one, there's not a person in this room who hasn't forgotten more about Resnet and HERS than I'll ever know. But I think I have an idea about how this organization, how this movement fits into the larger scope of sustainability. And I can tell you a little bit about the Vision House as well. But I want to start just by getting to know you a little bit, and I understand it's kind of a one-way, although I will say there are a lot of faces in this audience that I recognize. And I've also got to share a little bit of a warning with you. When Steve double-checked with us and Sarah said, are you sure, have you heard Ron present? Are you sure you want Ron to come and talk to your group? He can be a little bit provocative. And Steve said, well, a keynote should be provocative. And I'm going to tell you that if I don't offend anybody here today, I haven't done my job. I wasted a trip. And I don't like wasting trips. I'm not here to take prisoners. I'm here to provoke you a little bit. I'm here to make you think. So let's see what we can do about that. When we start talking about green building, my personal story, and I realized this, you want to feel old. I realized a couple of weeks ago that this is my 50th year as a green builder. I strapped on an apron at the age of 12 and started working in cleaning used building materials that were going to be reused, and in doing remodels of dilapidated housing. And in fact, on that November afternoon when I learned that JFK had been shot, I was cleaning bricks for a penny apiece in a brickyard southeastern Colorado. It doesn't seem like 50 years ago. It doesn't seem like that far away, but it is far. And during that time, what I've seen is this continual dance between what we do and what we know. I call it the dance of the dinosaurs. And for the building industry and the green building movement, the focus came about largely as a result of the environmental movement. And I did bring some slides from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, by the way. I'm glad you had some fresh images. I just keep recycling the same ones. The fact of the matter is, when I first got involved at an institutional level with the building industry, the first thing that I was taught was that those environmental extremists are going to put us out of business. If they have their way, we have built our last house in this country. Well, that's interesting. So I got involved. And in the mid-90s, it became really apparent that the home building industry was beginning to feel the pressures that had been predicted, and they were largely attributable to 3 federal acts: the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. And so this prophecy was coming true that these environmental extremists were going to have an effect on the industry. So NHB, in its wisdom, put together a group of people, very smart people, very dedicated people, very sincere people, that they called the Environmental Issues Task Force. And this was back in the mid-90s. And after about a year and a half of hard work, they came back with some really interesting conclusions. They said, the industry and the association have got to put some policy in place that are going to help us to cope with the pressure that we're receiving from environmentalists relating to the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act, or we've built our last home. And they also said, you know, there's this thing we keep hearing about, it's called green building. In fact, now there's a U.S. Green Building Council, and at that time, they were just in the commercial and institutional space, but there was an inkling that they were going to move into the residential arena too. And when you're trying to be all things to all people in residential building, that's a little bit threatening. So the association in its wisdom decided that it would form a new committee, the Environmental Issues Committee, and they assigned some of their very best staff and some of their best leadership to that committee, and I was fortunate enough to have a chair on that committee. And so we had those 4 legs under the stool: clean air, clean water, ESA, and green building. And at the first formal meeting of that committee in Washington, the spring board meetings in 1997, we spent 3 hours going through those first 3 stool legs. And then the chairman said, okay, well, you know what to do. We got to go out and defeat these extremists. And I said, wait a minute, there's a 4th leg under the stool. It's called green building. So this guy stood up. This is not the guy, okay? This is just some picture. This guy kind of looks like him, and I've shown this picture to probably 100,000 people over the years, but he kind of looks like him. But this guy said to me, right here, as close as you are, I don't want to hear about green building. If you demonstrate that you can do it, somebody will make us do it. So that was pretty much how it went. And the problem was that there was this sort of built-in resistance that kept repeating itself, and so the standard whine was always, well, it's too expensive, and it's too hard. And you know, I just can't get green products from my suppliers, and my subcontractors don't know how to do it, don't want to learn. My customers won't pay for green. But my favorite was always, green building should be market-driven. Market-driven solutions. Yeah, that's my favorite. I don't know, let's think about market-driven solutions a little bit. How about if we take on, oh, I don't know, transportation? So when we see gas prices that look like this, what's the market reaction? Well, usually it's dads out there trading in the minivan for something that looks like this. And then, I don't know, after a while, gas prices go back down, and guess what? Sales of these bad boys go through the roof. But in their wisdom, they're all sitting in the same parking lot called an interstate highway. And in fact, the only area in that whole image that has any blank space in it happens to be in that HOV lane there. Market-driven solutions. If we apply market-driven solutions to sustainability in the shelter industry, we're in big trouble, folks. It's not going to do it. I'm always interested in these consumer preferences. We do a lot of survey work at Green Builder. We survey our readers, we survey the industry, we survey advertisers, we survey consumers. It's really interesting to me that there's a certain group of people that will fall on their sword to prevent something like this happening to their view. But at the same time, they'll live downwind of this for decades. And they'll allow other people's children to live there too. And then, how many of you live in a community where there are subdivisions that have a prohibition on a PV system on a rooftop? And yet, who complains about this? This is the street scene in San Francisco. You know, we got this thing about aesthetics. There are communities all over this country where it's prohibited to hang your laundry on a clothesline because, I don't know, somehow it's offensive. It bothers people. It's not aesthetically pleasing. Well, it depends on whose aesthetic you're talking about. You see, I brought a polar bear picture, but it's not really a story about the polar bear. It's about the Inuit people. You've heard of the Inuit people. About 150,000 souls. They dwell in 4 countries north of the Arctic Circle: United States, Canada, Greenland, and Russia. Their way of life has been changed radically in the past couple of decades, and in fact, today, it's disappearing. Because you see, to them, sea ice is not the frontier. It's not a wilderness. It's their home. It's where they live. And so we say, well, you know, in the big picture, in the scheme of things, that's a fairly small number of people. We can relocate 150,000 people. We might even be able to help them hold on to a little bit of their culture, although it's doubtful. My question is, who's next? Do we decide, I've got friends here from the Gulf Coast, do we decide that because you're too close to sea level, we're just not going to rebuild next time. We're going to go ahead and move you inland? Anybody here from the Jersey Shore or from Long Island? What if we just decided that, that's expendable? Your culture doesn't really matter. We're not going to find ways to reverse the problem. We know what they are, but you know, it's just not quite convenient enough for most of us. So what we leave ourselves with is this amazing public policy that puts us in a position where we have to believe that this glorious system that we have out there is going to take care of us, and that it will march off into the sunset with dependable power, with dependable water, with dependable waste removal and treatment, and that everybody's going to live happily ever after. But every time a storm hits, this is what we see. I already mentioned Louisiana. It's my first chance to offend some folks. There are people in this room who will attest to the fact that shortly after the storm, I don't know, I couldn't stay away. I had to go down and start getting involved. And I worked with a variety of people: the Home Builders Association, general contractors, the city, the state, NGOs, the utility, variety of good, sincere, honest people. And off and on for about a year and a half, tried to make some progress there. And I was driving through a section with a builder about 18 months after my first trip, and it was actually the Lakewood area, if you know New Orleans, and it was hit pretty hard. It's pretty close to the levees. And we were driving through in a big 4x4 truck. And so even with that vehicle, we're having to really creep along because of the huge craters that were still in the road. And things had improved somewhat because the first time I was there, debris was piled higher than buildings on both sides of the road. There were actually RVs and small houses on top of buildings the first time that I went down there. And most of that had been cleared away, and now we were just looking at devastation. But I was thinking about how there was still so much missing. There were no sidewalks. There were no street signs. There were so many things that were out of place. And I guess I just murmured to myself. I said, you know, I think the thing that's most frustrating to me as a builder is that public policy is not pushing toward rebuilding this infrastructure and doing it well. And the answer I got was shocking. The reply that I got was, yeah, but we sure know how to party. And in that moment, I had to really ask myself, if I was making a difference. I had to ask myself if I was wasting my time or if we would ever move the needle. I got over that judgment, and I didn't wallow in that for very long. But what it taught me was that you can't walk in another person's shoes as much as you would like to. And so it's frustrating to me when I see natural disasters and man-made disasters that result in images like the one on the right. And then I think about the fact that, how many miles of power lines have been buried since that storm? How many yards have been buried? How many inches have been buried? We lack the political will to go ahead and take the steps that are necessary to create a more sustainable built environment for ourselves and for future generations. Why is that? Well, here come those pesky extremists again, I'm telling you. Now they're telling us that we shouldn't be building pipelines across America, that we should be doing something else. And just a few months ago, while all the finger pointing was going on, I found myself headed toward a position where I was going to find out what the industry response would be to the next round of demand on a more sustainable future. So we were at the IBS NHB board meeting here a month ago in Las Vegas. And sure enough, in the open forum, guy gets up and says, the biggest threat to our industry are those extreme environmentalists, because they're going to use the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Water Act to make sure that we never build another road or build another house in this country. And I'm thinking, that's what you said 16 years ago. Do you know how many houses have been built? The other one was when they pointed the finger at the manufacturing sector. Anybody here from the manufacturing sector? Good, okay. What do these guys have in common right here? Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs. What they have in common is that they knew something that we wanted or needed, or how to create the model for making it happen before we knew. And I would suggest to you that the real opportunity in the built environment for the rest of our lifetime here is going to be in coming up with solutions that don't carry the same baggage that we currently have. I saw Rick back there earlier. Rick, what if? What if we had structures that repaired themselves, that were truly durable, that were completely reusable or recyclable? What if they gave us structural integrity and clean air, and they helped us to filter our waste and take care of water? And what if they produced their own energy? You know, we have a lot of those products right now. What we lack is the conviction of employing them. We have technologies today that are astonishing. We were down at the Consumer Electronics Show earlier in January, and the most amazing thing was the crossover between technology and shelter, the home environment, the residential structure. We're capable of doing just about anything from a communication standpoint that we want to when it comes to technology. And we've only scratched the surface. We're only beginning. But it's that policy piece, and that's that relationship between organizations like Resnet and the rest of the industry that are going to make the difference. I know there's some folks here from Arizona. It's your turn. I don't know if you were around in the late 70s, but boy, the big battle then was those double pane windows. They're going to force us to put double pane windows in residential structures, and by God, they're going to make sure that it's the last house we build in Arizona. Do you know how many houses have been built in Arizona since 1978? For crying out loud, there are 35, 40,000 starts a year during the boom. We fell into the, 10, 15,000, 16,000 range for a while in the slump. It's estimated now that we're going to be 19,500, 20,000 starts. Building permits, at least. Arizona this year. So what's going on around sustainability? Well, I'll tell you, these guys don't play well together. This is a real interesting group. They don't have a state builders association there. They have three main locals. Southern down in Tucson, Central in Phoenix, Northern Arizona up in Flagstaff. You know, they got a little bit different approach to things in those three areas. So right now, down in Pima County and Tucson, they have an ordinance that they're trying to put into place, and they're having to modify it a little bit, but they have an ordinance in place that they're trying to put in place for net zero energy. Well, the folks up at Central Arizona are a little worried about this. So they've actually introduced legislation into the state government. And I don't know what the status is here this morning. There's probably people in the room that can tell you. But essentially what they've said is, even though Arizona is a home rule state, and each jurisdiction can decide for itself how it wants to determine the quality of life for its residents, that's a little inconvenient for the home building industry. And so what we want to do is have a blanket piece of legislation. Well, we know that energy efficiency is important, but we want to make sure that you don't force us along too hard, too fast. So we want to have a requirement for a HERS rating that is only at a certain level statewide. It doesn't matter if you folks down in Tucson would like to have a stricter score. We just think this would be better for everybody. In all 50 states, ladies and gentlemen, what we have is this battle going on. We have this dance of the dinosaurs continuing. We have the technology. We have that increasing consumer awareness that we talked about. God knows we have the environmental imperative. For some reason, we just can't find the gumption. So what is the role of Resnet and HERS raters and people that are in this sector? Well, I have to tell you, I called and spoke to probably half a dozen of my most trusted friends in preparation for this. And the first thing that each one of them said is that if you don't keep your integrity as an organization and as an individual practitioner, you don't amount to anything. You have to keep that integrity or we're all sunk. But at the same time, you can't hide behind that integrity as an excuse for not pushing the envelope, for not increasing pressure on the market. They also said that education, continuing ed is critical. I don't know of many industries that move faster in developments of new information than ours does. And so it's really important for you to stay on top of that. You have to be a resource to your customers. And you have to be a source of encouragement to them. It's not enough to be passive. I've got a problem with appraisers. If there's some appraisers in the room, it's your turn now. We surveyed appraisers to find out if there was a market for green appraisal training that made sense for us to pursue. And it was summed up in the response of one appraiser in particular who said, Well, if it becomes regulation, then I'll take the course. But until then, I'm not going to bother. It's not enough to be able to add and subtract. It's not enough to be able to create an accurate report. We are only going to be as effective as the person in this room, the person in this industry who cares the very least. You're here because you do care. You're here because you want to learn. You're here because you're sharing information. You're here because you know that tomorrow is not going to be exactly like today. You're here because you know there's an opportunity out there. Things have changed a little bit. Before the crash, there were far more specifiers out there than there are today. Even if we get back to the same number of starts, which I'm not necessarily advocating, but if we get back to the same number of homes built per year, there are going to be fewer people building them. And so that means that you have to be able to communicate a value proposition to those people you want to serve, to those clients, to those builders, to the consumers. And you have to embrace that yoke of advocacy that Steve talked about. You have to be willing to be part of the solution. You have to work with some sometimes awkward allies in order to accomplish a higher goal. So I don't care what flavor of residential building you're interested in. It doesn't really matter, because we're all going to be in the same situation. And therefore, you have to be willing to grow. You have to be willing to adapt. You have to be open to new ideas. And more importantly, you have to be willing to advocate for those things. You have to be willing to say to your customers, yeah, I could help you get to that point score, but let me show you an alternative that would make a bigger difference as well. Talk a little bit about the Vision House at Interventions. We do a series of demonstration projects across the country from Florida to California. These are real houses with real builders in real neighborhoods, and real people live in them. And they are designed and built to demonstrate what's possible. And we love doing them. I tell people I have the best job in the world. I get to work on great projects in great locations with great people, with all the latest technology and products, goods and services, and at the end I don't have any customers. It's a perfect job for a builder. We were down in Florida, it's a little over 2 years now. I happened to be giving a talk here in Orlando. After the talk, some folks from Disney came up and said, you know, this is an interesting idea. Maybe we should talk about doing a demonstration project out at Epcot. And I said, well, you know, I mean, I'm just a carpenter. You talk to somebody smarter than me. Here's Sarah, so you guys decide what you want to do. And long story short, on Earth Day of this past year, we opened the Vision House at Interventions. It's a 3-year run. We're going to celebrate our first anniversary with a sustainability summit on Earth Day this year. Why is this important? This is not the greenest house in America. This is a demonstration project. And quite candidly, we had to find a sweet spot. We had to dumb it down a little bit, because not everybody that comes on the tour really gets it. So we had to find a way to elevate people a little bit on the floor and also be able to satisfy people at the high bar. But you see, it's the opportunity that's important to us, because 11 million people a year visit Epcot Center, and 6 million of those people come through Interventions and walk right by our exhibit, and many tens of thousands of them take the tour and go through there. And for many of them, it's the first time they've ever heard of a HERS rating. It's the first time they've ever thought about indoor air quality as being something that can be affected by mechanical systems. It's the first time they've been introduced to the concept of a building envelope. Recently, just a few months into this thing, we were several hundred million media impressions. Just recently, I was astonished to learn that in less than a year, this little project has garnered 1 billion, that's with a B, 1 billion media impressions. That's a lot of eyeballs, folks. That's a lot of people at least getting exposed to this notion. And every one of them now is about to learn about a HERS rating and what it means to focus on performance. I told CR earlier when we were visiting, I've been reading too much lately. I had a little too much time on my hands, and I'm a binge reader. I order half a dozen, 10 books, and I devour them, and then I do something else for 6 months. And I made a mistake. I have to tell you, I had never owned my own copy of Silent Spring, Rachel Carson's masterwork. It was written 50 years ago. Interesting. I've been building stuff for 50 years. I thought that's an interesting coincidence. And the more I read, the more my heart cried. Because we may not be spraying DDT like we were 50 years ago, but we're doing plenty of things that are just as damaging. I want to ask you something. Any parents in the room? Yeah. Is there any parent in the room that doesn't love your children? Any grandparents in the room? Is there a grandparent in this room that doesn't love their grandchildren? Why is it so hard for us to love the children of all people? Why is it so hard for us to love the children of all species? In the time that we have been here this morning, in this 90-minute session, it's estimated that somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 species per minute has found extinction. It's called the Anthropomorphine extinction. There have been 5 major extinctions according to scientists. This is the 6th one. This is the first one that is attributed to man's activities. We're not so different from this guy right here. He is programmed genetically for one thing, and that is to survive. And we share that with him and with every sentient creature on this planet. Why then do we choose to participate in our own extinction? This is my last slide. If you could choose any animal to be your symbol, your personal symbol, what would it be? A tiger, a bear, a lion, a whale, a unicorn, a butterfly? I don't know. Well, I choose these guys. These are dung beetles, scarabs. They were considered sacred by the Egyptians. And the reason is that all other life in their ecosystem depends on them. Somebody's got to shovel the shit, right? Well, I strapped that apron on as a boy of 12. And I had a couple of old carpenters, one named Tony, an Italian-American, one named Herschel, a German-American, and they were old school, and they were tough old SOBs. But for some reason, they thought that my education was important. And so they gathered me up some tools, and they taught me a lot of important lessons. Sometimes I didn't like it. They let me make mistakes. They didn't let me make too many twice. They didn't let me make very many suggestions. Like one time I said, you know, if one of my friends came and worked with us, we could get a lot more work done. And Tony said, if you got one kid, you got some help. If you got two kids, you got nothing. He was right, of course. They used to take me out to a local reservoir on Saturday nights. We'd go out there and camp on the bank and catfish all night. And we'd set up the gas lanterns and cast out the bait, and we'd shoot the breeze. They'd pass a brown paper bag between them, and pretty soon I was the only one fishing, and I caught most of the fish. It took me a long time to realize that fishing's not necessarily about catching. So when I started building houses, I didn't really think about the last house. I always just thought about the next house. And somehow we were doing something right. You know, we were attracting people to our product. And it so happened that one afternoon, a Sunday in October, the last day of the Parade of Homes in Albuquerque, I was sitting in my parade house. It was a pre-sold. I hadn't had a chance to do a spec house in probably 12 years because we had a waiting list and I never could do any spec work at that time. But it was a pre-sold and it was in the Parade of Homes, and my customers let me do that. And in the last hour of the last day, a couple came in. They were from Silver Spring, Maryland. I'll never forget. And they came in and they stayed there for 3 hours. And all I wanted to do was go home. But at the end of that 3 hours, I penciled them in on the list. They were convinced that they wanted us to build their house. And the interesting thing is that I went home that night and I laid awake all night because I had realized my worst fear. You see, I went to work the next day and I got the team together at the end of the day and I said, guys, I got good news and bad news. The good news is that I signed another house yesterday, and so this was 1992. We've got work through 1998. We had a 6-year waiting list. And I said, you know, I'm only afraid of one thing. I'm afraid that I'm going to come to work someday and I'm going to realize that my best work is behind me. I'm not going to let that happen. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to build all the houses on that list, and I'm going to commit to 20 more. So it wasn't just a coincidence, by the way, that we started Green Builder Media in 2005 and launched the magazine in 2006. The fact is that that 20th house got finished in 2005. And I promise you that I never realized my worst fear. And I'll also tell you that I have one more house to build. And it's going to be a damn good one, because I'm going to live in it. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank Steve and Resnet and all the good people on the board and the sponsors. But I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to leave here and to realize that we have all got to push this boulder up the hill, or it's never going to make it to the top. Have a great conference. Thank you.
So that is it. We can go to breakout sessions, but I want to note one thing before you go. This is the first general session conference. I want to give applause to all speakers because we're adjourning ahead of time. Thank you so much.